Hello and welcome everyone to our next Bitcoin update. We had some very troublesome price action last week, and whether I'm switching bearish right now is something I'm going to explore in this video. So let's look at the daily first. What we see here is how we nicely swept the yearly open a couple of days ago. This is usually a good sign when we see these key levels being swept. We usually get some sort of liquidity in. We see how market makers grab the liquidity from specific key levels only to push price into the opposite direction. But what we can also see here is how on the daily we are forming another downwards trend within this sideways move. And yes, of course, we're still ranging. So technically nothing important right now is happening because we're still ranging. We're still on a range between more or less this level at 93.5k and this level at a little bit above 84k, almost 85k. This is the most important range we're in right now. However, we always need to look at the bigger picture, which is the range right now, and the smaller picture, seeing, okay, what can we see on smaller time frames, which might indicate which direction we're going to take next. And for this, I'm going to switch to the 4-hour, which makes this a little bit clearer. So first of all, as I said, last week I was incredibly bullish. Last week we're moving above everything that looks like a good trend. So last week we were moving above our momentum indicator, actually putting in some trend. We were about to break this 93.5k level, which has acted as a very strong resistance over the last 2 months. And everything looked pretty good. We saw how a lot of volume was coming in. We saw how actually this level wanted to be traded. Then we had the next discussions around tariff wars and Iran crisis, and these things usually push markets down. And this is exactly what happened last week, right when we were on this point, on the moment of breaking out of this range that had been holding us back for more than 2 months. This is what happened. We had these bad news and we saw the strong sell-offs back, not only back below the 93.5, but also back below the intermediate level that also had been acting as a strong resistance previously of 90.5k more or less. So we were pushed back down by macroeconomic events. Yes, this happens, but we have been in a very, very bad sentiment over the last month, over the last couple of months. And every time we see how price recovers, how we start gaining some more momentum, these sort of bad news come in and push us back down. This is not very favorable, and this kills the sentiment. Every time we see some volume coming in, every time we see some more buyers stepping in, especially on Bitcoin and other altcoins, we see how this is getting pushed back down by mainly macroeconomic events, which isn't perfect, but which still gives me the idea of being able to have another leg up in the near future once this whole thing stops. I don't know whether it will stop, but right now what happened, we see how we broke back below. While last week I was very, very bullish, this looked really good here. We broke the trend, we broke above the 4-hour 200 SMA. Everything looked fine. We saw volume coming in. We saw how the total market cap was increasing. So more money was flowing, not only into Bitcoin, but also into the other alts. And right now we broke back below. So we lost this very important trend here. We broke back below the 200 SMA, which is a generally, not always, but in general, a nice approximation for rather being in a bull market or rather being in a bear market. I'm not saying that we're specifically in a bear market right now, but losing this momentum again after breaking to the upside points towards a fake out, and this is something we usually don't want to see. So what we see right here is how we swept the yearly open very nicely. We got in some volume, and now, we're hanging. We are directly hanging inside or at the edge of our momentum indicator, and right now it looks like we're getting a rejection. We don't see volume coming in. We don't see how this want to push through this level. So again, momentum being rejected. And if we just draw a trend line here, we see how we clearly entered the next downtrend here. We broke back above. We can see, and depending on how you draw this, if you draw it like this, we're still in. This always depends. This is why I'm not a big fan of these lines. They just help us to visualize something very quickly. We could argue that we broke above that trend, but on the other hand, it's not very clean. So we'll just get rid of this. If it's not clean, it doesn't help us. So why should we use it? So this momentum indicator is much more flexible. And right now here we see how we're getting pushed back below this. We also had this weekly swing failure pattern, which is always a very, very strong indication. We see how we broke back below our momentum indicator on the weekly. We see how we try to retest this, basically put in a weekly swing failure pattern. Again, not a very good sign. So I would really like for us to push this back up, at least staying in this higher range on the weekly. On the daily, I already showed you, and on the 4-hourly, just to get some more momentum in, we need to break this momentum indicator. If we trade below this trend will continue and we will being pushed down more and more. So am I really switching bearish right now? To be honest, this doesn't look good. This doesn't look good at all. Because it's not only the Bitcoin price, it's also all across the board. Bitcoin dominance fails to just break important levels. Bitcoin dominance is ranging here, and we see that. Take some time. We see how we're ranging here, forming this higher leg up. On the other hand, this might be considered a bear flag, so we can actually hope for this to break down. However, we have been waiting for this to break down since September. Since September 25, we have been waiting for this to break down, and every time it touches some sort of support, it's being pushed back up. So again, nothing that looks really good, bullish for altcoins. While the Bitcoin dominance per se is not, if it's increasing, it's not something bearish. It just shows that more and more money is flowing into Bitcoin, which is in general, which is cool and okay, because I'm trading Bitcoin mainly. Of course, I'm also trading altcoins, but as long as Bitcoin is strong, I'm already pretty happy. But if this breaks down, this is what everyone usually waits for. If this breaks down, we're going to get a very, very nice altcoin season. Money's rotating back into altcoins, and this is what we want to see. So this per se can be viewed as rather neutral, even though I would be rather happy to see this at least going back into the 57% area. But what is troublesome is the USDT dominance, the dominance of USDT stables. Because we have seen over the last, we can get rid of the bands now, we don't need this here. We have seen over the last years that whenever, especially this goes back to February 24th, whenever we were moving in or within these rising channels, we had a very, very nice and strong breakdown afterwards, leading for money, rotating back into altcoins and Bitcoins and giving us some very, very nice price action. Right now, we're in such a rising channel as well since September 25. And we have been increasing, we have been moving within this channel. Let me zoom in a little bit, for quite a while now. And then we had a very nice breakdown. This looked really good. However, we saw rejection at a strong support level here around 5.8%. Again, around the top, breaking below this. And this again, this was last week. Last week, everything looked like we're gonna break down here. This looked really, really good. And I was really hoping for us to see something like this, to see a breakdown, maybe a nice bearish retest, trading within this area for a while, and then the further breakdown. Seeing how money rotates back into the altcoin market and into the Bitcoin market in general. But this is not what happened. While we were having these negative news impacts from tariffs and potential Iran wars and invasions, and also the whole thing about Greenland, everything was rather bearish in a macroeconomic perspective, pushing this thing up. That means people were basically moving back into stablecoins, waiting on the sidelines, being rather careful than some sort of showing a risk on sentiment. So right now, to be very honest, this doesn't look bearish at all. This rather looks like something that wants to break higher. Can we get a pullback here? Of course we can. But right now we're ranging between the support and resistance zones here. And this looks very stable. If we don't pull back at least below this blue line, because this has been the major resistance level over the last 1.5-2 years. if we don't pull back below this, this looks rather bullish. And if we break higher here, this is going to be very, very ugly for Bitcoin and altcoins, because we are already at scary levels. People are moving into gold and silver. People are avoiding risk on assets. If they are in crypto, they prefer being in stable coins instead of Bitcoin, Ethereum, or our other altcoins. So we want this to break down, ideally have a bearish retest in this section here, and finally break below our big support area, which is here. We don't know yet. So just to finish the whole thing, how am I looking at Bitcoin right now? It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. We have two major liquidity zones I'm still waiting for, and I had been mentioning them on Twitter and in former videos for a long time. We have a lot of liquidity still resting here at the 83.9, almost 84K level, and the next one here around the 80K level, 80,500, 600, depending on which chart you're looking at. This is the spot chart from Binance right now. These levels are still very, very important. So what am I looking for? To the downside, it's very simple. I'm looking for a move below, because right now we're not in any positive momentum. On the 4 hour, on the daily, everything looks bearish right now, at least short-term bearish within this bigger range. So what I would like to see is either a clean sweep of this low, taking all the liquidity from here and giving us a nice momentum push towards the upside, or an even bigger sweep to the downside, sweeping the 80K zone, maybe consolidating a little bit before we build up new momentum. This is what usually happens. In the very, very rarest occasions, we will see something like this. Everyone is always looking for this perfect V-shaped recovery, something like this going down here, having a very quick wick below and then shooting back up. But guys, given the whole sentiment, given the USDT dominance, given everything we see right now, especially the stability and the bullishness around gold and silver, this is not something I'm seeing very, very likely right now. But we will see. We never really know. The most important thing is we wait for the levels to be hit. We wait for our triggers. My triggers are always shown in our Signal Labs community. This is where I show my short-term trades, and this is where I show exactly what I'm looking for and what sort of triggers I'm looking for. So just feel free to join us if you want to look for more trading setups. But this is the level, or at least the lower part, I'm looking for. So I'm still rather want to lean towards the bullish side, because I still think that we are in a very, very strong range. I still think that Bitcoin adoption is gonna explode, and we see this every single day right now. The only thing is we need some positive catalysts. We need some more momentum coming into the market. Unless we see that, maybe we're gonna range. And again, maybe we range for another month or two within that zone. But I would really like to see for us to getting some momentum. When will I switch bearish? Basically only if we really break below that considerably. If we really see that we significantly break below that, move into that 74K area, and I will only flip bearish when we break below the 74K area on the daily and on the weekly chart. This is my zone to really say, okay, the entire trend now is completely over. We break down, maybe we even get a bearish retest and break further down into this accumulation zone here back from 2024. But until we don't break below 74K, I'm not really bearish. But to be honest, right now, I'm not really bullish either, because I just want to see what happens. We need to get our triggers. If we should get a break above, I'm switching bearish, just to sum this up, below the 74K area. And when I will switch back bullish, first step, reclaiming that 90.5K level, which had been acting as a very important resistance for a long time. This would be my first sign of switching slightly bullish, and I will switch back to bullish once we break this area. We really need to break above that 93.5K level, hold into that area, get some confirmation. Even though this looked pretty good, we were holding above pretty strongly, but then we had the negative news. Once we break back above this, this is the time for me to be bullish, to look for stronger longs. I will look for longs if we get a good confirmation above here, but I will really go into bigger longs and with more conviction once we break this level. So things are not really optimal right now. I'm not really switching bearish, but in order for me to switch bullish, we want to see more price momentum to the upside. We want to see how we regain the trend, at least on the 4-hourly. I want us to break at least my momentum bands, to break back above these, to show some confirmation and to reclaim the overhead resistance levels. So I hope you liked the video. There's going to be many more updates. If you want to see all the details and all the trading setups, just join us at Signal Labs. This is where I'm going to show everything. And until the next update, happy to see you again. Bye.